Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Inspirational Influencer News, People Making a Difference. Today, we're joined by Anaiis, who is the author of The Living Spiral of Transformation. Discover the hidden powers in your diverse, unique DNA. She shares the personal and universal living lessons that are key to her bliss, awakening, and lifelong spiritual journey of integration of expanding conscious awareness. NIE's mission is to guide others toward discovering and living through the magnificent and powerful, loving, co creative capacity that is in each individual life. Salles focuses on divine feminine, divine masculine co creation and supporting sacred union awareness. A co creative catalyst on the cutting edge of energy medicine, her healing results involved minimal use of hardware technology, but Sally's energy healing skills results are medically verified. Salles established her authority as an energy medicine practitioner by initiating an internship collaboration with physicians. Highlights of this first trip to Moscow are shared in a documentary about the value of being a hands on healing team member with critically burned individuals and children with cancer. She is also a holistic product innovator. And Anaiis is here today to tell us about a summit that she's putting on and how you can participate. So, Anaiis, I'm sure people are dying to know what you can tell us.
Well, I hope they're not dying. I hope they're living to know.
I guess that's true.
so, so, that's a funny expression, that one.
It
Thank
is.
you. It is. Thank you, Mary, for sharing this time with me today. I really appreciate it. And yes, I am very excited about the upcoming summit. It's coming soon, April 22nd through 24th, in just a couple of weeks. And this is Life Beyond Trauma, a Burn Survivors Summit. Who is this summit for? It's for burn survivors, whether this is a new experience in their life or whether this is a burn survivor who has been managing their care for decades. And one of the goals of the summit is to bring people together in community, burn survivors and non burn survivors, because families are involved, children are involved, kids in classrooms are involved. There's a lot of social interaction, and burn survivors have a unique place, and they're always having to readjust what has become an identity that they didn't think they were going to have before they had their burn experience. So, as you know, when we talked about this, we both agreed that most people in life have some experience of being terribly hurt outside or terribly hurt inside. And in this instance, we're focusing on those people who could use some new and innovative and holistic methods to deal with pain, to deal with lack of sleep, to deal with managing the stress of so much ongoing challenge to health and wellness. That's part of the burn survivor community. So that's what we're going to do.
That sounds great. When you told me life beyond trauma, what I realized is that a lot of us have trauma. It's not just burn victims. We have trauma in our lives. And I've heard it said that birth is a tremendous trauma that we all have to learn to survive or not. Some people don't make it. But if you do, you're surviving that trauma. So I think that even if you're not a burn victim, I suspect many of the skills and many of what the things that you are going to talk about and I guess the practices that people have taken on in order to survive trauma would be something that would be good for practically everyone.
Yes, there's overlap. For instance, We're having speakers in a pretty interesting range of topics. We have a speaker who's going to be sharing information about financial education, because in any catastrophic event in a family, or for someone who is an adult living on their own, that kind of an event can really upend how you manage your resources, your financial resources. So we have someone who's going to speak on that. We have someone who's going to speak on how do you just get your foot in the door of being able to get a phone call for legal advice as you're moving through a slow moving catastrophe that's your person that you love who's a burn victim, but it's impacting everyone else's life. And what were the conditions under which that burn scenario happened? Do you need to contact someone with regard to the legal implications? So we're also looking at the creative aspect of recovery from any kind of trauma. Creativity is the best thing ever for moving through trauma, as well as being able to have a wonderful relationship with a pet. That can go a long way to easing some of the stress, the daily stress of trauma. I have a woman who's a feng shui expert. She's going to be talking about how do you create a calm, peaceful, regenerative, restorative environment in your home. And this is also good information for anybody who is a caregiver or who is running a facility where people are being cared for with these issues. What can that facility do to make the feng shui inside of it a little bit more restorative in terms of the energy exchange that happens for the people who are being cared for there? Let me see, what else do we have on tap? We have two amazing keynote speakers. We have Bobby Streeter. His full name is Robert E. Streeter III, and he's a Master of Fine Arts. Bobby was burned when he was 8 years old, and it was significant. And he persevered. He went through all the processes that go on through this, and he was young and he was in school, and we all know that very often someone in that situation will be ridiculed and they'll be bullied, especially if they look different. Well, one of the things that was just a wonderful experience for Bobby was that he began to run track, and he was good at it, and he became a track star. And so you imagine someone going from being the survivor of catastrophic burns to becoming a track star. Now he is a leadership training coach, he's a philanthropist, and a feature film is being made about his life. He's one of our keynote speakers. The other keynote speaker that we have is an amazing woman from your neck of the woods, Mary, and that is Kelly Falardo. She's a Canadian. She also survived extensive burns from a very young age. I don't think she was any older than 3. And she did have to deal with the pain of looking so different when she went to school. And like everyone who has trauma, something happens where you have to confront your identity. Who are you going to be? How are you going to be the person that you would most like to be? Well, Kelly went through this, and at the age of becoming an adolescent and a young woman, she was fearful that she would maybe never marry, maybe never have children. Well, she did. She married, she has children, and she's become a wonderful coach for aspiring authors. She's got an amazing TED Talk, and she's a beautiful writer. And she has a book out that's done very, very well about what it's like to deal with these scars that we're all having to try to transform, whether they're inside or outside. So we're going to be looking, we have a couple of young business people coming in. They have a wonderful card deck. You know, when you're in the hospital or when you're home and you're still managing the pain and the difficulty, well, how about a game that helps relieve some of your emotional anxiety and some of your stress, talking about being in a, I'm going to use, quote, quote, language about it being in a shizzle relationship. And the cards are also attached to the opportunity to get coached. This is a beautiful, beautiful new kind of approach. Then we have people who are going to be talking about how to navigate the benefit system when you're in the United States, and if something happens to you and you're disabled, what's the benefit process of being able to get disability benefits? So we have someone who's speaking about the ins and outs of all of that, very clear about that process and how you have to fight for it. So we've got a lot going on. I'm going to be talking about energy healing. I'm going to be talking about how we can use certain techniques to encourage our physical bodies to respond to the best input that we can give them, and that's good rest, good food, good companionship, love and affection, and the inner resources that we bring to the table anytime we're being challenged. So that's a kind of a run-up. I hope that's enough to give you a sense of what it's going to be like.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more about some of these stories, because they sound like they're very inspirational people. And it sounds like something, since both of your keynote speakers were injured severely as children. I mean, it sounds like it would be something pretty inspirational, especially for kids during their teen years, because I think that's a period that's traumatic for most teens as they try to figure out, am I a kid or am I an adult, or am I somewhere in the middle, and who's responsible and who's taking care of me, and how should I be? And that's, just there, that whole relationship of growing from being a child who's obviously got parents who take care of them. Well, we hope so, not on every instance, but in most instances. And you go from that situation to where all of a sudden now you're stepping out on your own. And sometimes that can be pretty unpleasant because kids aren't always kind to one another.
There are huge issues around shaming and bullying that happen when a child is burned and then they go into public education and they look really different, and it's noticeable. So one of the reasons I'm doing this summit is because the more conversation we have about this, and the more, someone's younger brother or someone's cousin attends this summit and just gets to see, oh, this is what happened. When I see someone who looks different, how do I respond to that? Maybe I can learn how not to hurt their feelings. And so this is also education for family, for community, for anybody who understands what it means to be different. And it's also about the emotional support, because it's a really, really difficult journey, and many, many young people, especially the adolescents, late teens, early 20s, can fall into such a sense of despair that they may actually become suicidal. So we're looking at bringing in practitioners that can come in to deal with some of those aspects of it's grief. We have a woman coming in who's going to do a session about grief, because when that radical of a change happens in your body, that is a form of death. You're not going to be the same person that you were. You're going to have to deliberately choose to become someone new. So yeah, it's pretty dynamic. And my own connection to this, I'm not a burn survivor, but I have had the privilege of working in hospital settings, critical burn care wards, working alongside doctors in many of the various ways in which critical burn care is addressed, even to the point of being in the debriding process, being side by side with the patient as they were having the dead burned skin clipped away. It's a very painful thing. And
that was what you were doing, wasn't it, when you were in Russia? Wasn't that
yes,
where you were?
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
That's, yeah.
Yeah. And it was an extraordinary experience for all involved. And I became someone who had then some information that I could share and teach. which is the basis of my work. It's always been that. It's about how do we share and teach, how do we help one another, and how do we build a bridge, an effective bridge between allopathic medicine and holistic medicine, so that traditional medicine doesn't feel threatened, holistic practitioners don't become endangered or are silenced because their particular way of working isn't considered hard science. And how do we then bring that bridge into stability so people who need both to walk across that bridge from one side to the other as they need to can do so without extreme expense, challenges, where one side's, well, if you're doing this, then I'm not going to do that with you. This is not what we need in 2022 after we've come out of a pandemic. We really do need to build this kind of a bridge.
Yeah, I think that pandemic, I mean, everything that I saw and heard, the people that didn't want to get vaccinated and had other treatments and had other modalities that they believed in and they wanted to try, and oh no, that was really not allowed. And they really had no place to go because, man, the medicine is medicine side really came, no, that's not real medicine. That's well, I'm sorry, it's always been what I've always considered, what you eat is what you're going to look like. It's how your health is going to be. It's kind of all one thing. And even, different people respond differently to medicine, whether it's allopathic or holistic or however it is. Different people respond differently. That's why all these trials, some people get it and some people don't, and works some for one person, but it doesn't work as well for another person. There's just no one size fits all.
Exactly. You took the words right out of my mouth. There's no one size fits all. So how do we make more room? Because I do work. In my work, I talk about DNA. I talk about, my book is about your diverse, unique DNA. That's no joke. Every one of us is absolutely a genetic miracle, and we are unique. There will never be another you. And so the one size fits all concept, I get it. There has to be a practical point, but there's room inside that circle for many other people who can bring resources in that, oh, this didn't fit you? Well, maybe this does. Why don't we try? So that's kind of the underlying energy of this summit, and I'm very excited about it. And we will be following up with another summit in the fall. So I'm going to just reach out to anybody out there who's listening. We're still looking. We still have room for a couple of speakers, and we would love to have someone in any one of the product areas of the new products that are out there now. There's a lot of stem cell research. There are stem cell patches. I'm having a conversation with a woman toward the end of the month, but before the summit. She's working with the DNA level element of telomerase, and that really does have everything to do with how your DNA reproduces itself and makes good, accurate copies. Yeah? This also has to do with aging, but it has to do with how your whole body functions. So we're looking for people who are on the bridge between what is not yet science, but what is moving on as wonderful, valuable healing experience and information. So if you know anyone, please have them get in touch with me. I'm going to be looking for people anyway all through the rest of this year, because we do plan to have a second summit in the fall.
Well, maybe you should name names, because you haven't told us who your guests are. You told us what they're going to talk about, but there might be some real synergies with people hearing names and going, oh, I know them. Oh, that's what well, maybe so-and-so would help or something.
Well, that's why we have a preview page ready. And, people can come and look, but we're still getting things formulated. This is, after all, my first summit. And I did give you some information about, our keynote speakers. We don't have yet a plastic surgeon who's worked with burn patients who could talk about some ways of dealing with really, you know, who would think about a young girl who gets burned, 7, 8, 9 years old? Then she's going to go into puberty. Well, depending on where she was burned, what about her organic breast development? How is that managed from a surgical perspective, from a recovery perspective? And then, if insurance will pay for breast implants so that a female burn survivor looks pretty much like any other young woman looks, well, what happens in her late 30s or early 40s when those breast implants begin to degrade and fall apart? Now, I know specifically in the United Kingdom, cancer patients, women with breast cancer, will have their breast implants put in, taken out, put in again, paid for by the National Health Service. But a female burn patient who's in that same situation needs the implants need to be taken out, will not get a new set of implants paid for by the National Health Service. That's kind of crazy.
Totally crazy.
Totally crazy. So I will say we're specifically I am looking to develop mastermind relationships with people in various levels of the insurance industry. I'd love to talk to some of the thought leaders and change makers in some of the bigger insurance companies. And I'll be taking this work onward because this is something that we could solve. We could make it a more level playing field. And I think that there's state and local government, in addition to incredible organizations like the Shriners Organization in the United States, 100 hospitals dealing with the issues of critical burn care, and they do a fabulous job. So there's lots of room to play here, and I don't know whether anyone would recognize the names of who our speakers are, but I don't want to spoil the surprise. I want people to be
Okay, okay.
yeah, excited. And you'll go and you'll look at our preview page, and we'll have our marketing materials out next week, and so you'll find out who's who. But we have wonderful people who are really contributing their time, bringing their expertise, and it's free to attend. Anybody can register and come and attend for free. And then if you want to upgrade, that will be entirely up to you. And I'm really excited, although I'm a little bit tired right now.
I can imagine. I mean, putting on these events and sorting out and trying to get all the people organized. And yeah, I've often thought of summit organizers as people who must like herding cats, because if you can't herd cats, don't be a summit leader. I've watched these people do it, and it's like, oh my, oh my, oh my.
I think there's something to be said about that. But I had a child environment before my awakening. This big thing that happened to me that gave me these gifts that I didn't know I was gonna have. I was someone who was how shall I say it? I love the creative arts. I've loved them since I was a child, and in my life before becoming a practitioner, I was involved in community theater. I directed, I produced, I acted, I wrote. There's a certain amount of that you can bring forward in this kind of a situation and hope that it works well. And then I also had the wonderful experience of being a field campaign manager for one of our United States senators when he was transitioning from Congress to Senate, and he actually has run for president twice. So you want to talk about herding cats.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and a really intense, hardworking environment. I've had that experience too. So I'm bringing that into this role. But the key piece for me is having had the amazing privilege of being able to work alongside physicians and help people who were critically burned and while they were in hospital, and have that work recognized and valued by the physicians.
Yeah, that's great. That's really great. When there's openness and acceptance of, I can't do it all, and you have your part to play, and I can play my part, and somebody else can play the next part, because that's, I think, where patients will likely get the very, very best care.
There's one more thing I want to add, because apparently I'm getting very good at arm twisting, which I never thought was one of my skills. But as a practitioner, I have a morning ritual. I do this every morning. I'm sometimes up very early. It depends. It could be 4 o'clock, anywhere from 4 to 6 o'clock in the morning, where I'm doing my inner work, my spiritual work. And one of the key components of my music is key, because sound is so important to the body. We are more than 70% water, and the sound of who we are is just as important as the how we look of who we are. So a Grammy award winning musician named Peter Cater, I just emailed him. I never talked to this man. I didn't know anything about him. I didn't know he was a Grammy award winner. I didn't know he was famous. I sent him an email. I said, I'm buying up all of the copies of this particular album because it's no longer available, and would you re-release it? Would you consider re-releasing it? Please. I don't know what I'm going to do if I can't ever get new copies of this CD, because everything is streamed now. Everything
Of course,
right?
everything digitized,
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. So this, all right, for you troglodytes out there like me who still have a CD player or two and you love to listen to music that way, this musician did agree to re-release this album. It's called Essence. And curiously, my holistic product, like I didn't know this guy, didn't know anything about him, didn't know about the music, but my product it's Essence. It's a line of essences, and that's the official name. So it's kind of a fun little grace note that this I'll be giving away copies of this album to anybody who wants to work with a CD as part of my talk about how we work with energy and sound and light and healing and co-creating relationship between what's considered masculine and feminine energy, because we're both and we need to get that balanced. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to leave Peter's name out of it. Peter Cater, look him up online. He's a Grammy Award winner, and it's just the most gorgeous music to include in a meditation or in a healing session. So I wanted to just that's a name somebody might recognize.
Well, my mother was a music teacher and absolutely loved music. So I grew up definitely in a music world. I went to bed at night listening to music and woke in the morning listening to music. So it was pretty special. Anyway, we are coming to the end of our talk, and I do want to give you a chance to tell our listeners how they can get hold of you, how they can get more information about the summit and everything else that you've got going on. And Anaiis.
Thanks, Mary. Go to small l, small b, small t, summit, all in lowercase.com, and that will take you to our preview registration page. You'll get some of the highlights. It's being updated daily, so it'll give you a sense of what's going on, and you'll meet Paige Spears on that page. And she is a young woman who has had a tremendous journey, and she's going to be part of the summit. She's going to be speaking, and I can't wait for you all to meet her as well. She's been a terrific support through this whole process.
So that's L as in lamb, B as in Bob, T as in Tom, summit.com. Is that right?
Yes, Mary, that's right. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, thank you, Anaiis. We really appreciate your time. And for those of you who are listening and would like to be a star on your own show, please reach out to me at getonmyshow.com. And you too could appear on Inspirational Influencer News, People Making a Difference. It's just such an exciting time to be able to introduce these wonderful people to a broader audience, because they deserve to be known. And I'm happy to play my part. So Thanks again, Anaiis, and bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. I appreciate it. Take good care. Bye bye.